Consumer prices in Kenya increased to 6.68% in November 2016 from 6.5% in the previous month and above market expectations of a 6.48% gain. It was the highest inflation rate since February, boosted by higher food costs. This state of affairs is affecting contribution of the middle class to an overall economy.
We have defined what it means to be in the lower class. But what defines, or rather what constitutes the middle class? What is their contribution to the gross domestic product?
A report released by the Institute of Economic Affairs indicates that persons earning an average of 57,000 and 77,000 shillings fall in Kenya's middle class category.
So inflation takes out about between 1%, or rather because of inflation alone, 1% of people who qualify, who would otherwise be in the middle class, are not. So the effect of inflation is that we have fewer people in the middle class than we really should in terms of their buying power.
This accounts for 11.5% of the total population in formal employment, contributing 24% of total wages. Between 2009 and 2015, nominal wages earned by the middle class saw the cluster contribute up to 282 billion shillings in 2015 in comparison to 115 billion shillings in 2009. Despite the growth, economists are warning that the rising levels of inflation are a detriment to economic growth. Nairobi and Mombasa counties lead the pack in relation to persons in the middle class category at 11.5% and 10.5% respectively.
Most of these middle class functions, it may be a bias based on how we chose it, but at the same time, all those wages are going to be available only within urban areas, and there's a huge concentration in urban areas. So that's Nairobi, Mombasa. So it's going by size of the city.
This is attributed to urbanization and centralization of services such as education, manufacturing and financial services.
Most of the industries that create or have a higher share of people in the middle class tend to be capital intensive. And it's not difficult for an economist to understand why. There's an abundance of labor in Kenya. So I would say on a comparative basis, labor will be cheap. So what that means is if you add to your labor, education and higher qualifications, then you're probably going to be working in those other industries that have that remunerate a little better.
As such, capital-intensive sectors like education, manufacturing and construction, financial services, wholesale and repair of motor vehicle sectors have employed 63% of Kenya's middle class, while agriculture and fishing accounts for just 3%.
You can farm all the land in the world. It is unlikely that our productivity will increase. So the point is not against agriculture. The point is we have to farm differently, which might mean few more people working on the farms, but in the value chain for agriculture, there's opportunity for more jobs and for more middle class to be created.
The latter presents an oxymoron of sorts as government continues to pump in money in agribusiness, with economists saying that the government needs to focus on capacity building in the capital-intensive sectors to spur growth in the middle-class masses who contribute up to 5% of GDP annually. The percentage of women in the middle class minimally increased to 37% at 80,000 due to the formal sector, which has grown, attributed to affirmative action enshrined in the new constitution.
So we have to find ways in which we can encourage more women to join formal employment, and as we talked about, to join both the private and public sector employment.
Economists are challenging the middle class to take up a more proactive role in policy making, stating that the survival and growth of the Kenyan economy depends on the success of the middle class. All factors kept constant,
Statistics have indicated that the middle class are key to the social and economic development of the country. Economists are warning that runaway inflation, if not checked, is going to continuously shrink the middle class and in turn their contribution to GDP. Regina Manyera Gitao reporting for Business Insight.